All right, given that it is 6:30, I'm going to call the meeting to order. So this is the one meeting a year in which the town administrator calls a meeting to order. I'd like to recognize the public. It looks like we have Sheila Morse and Don McLean and Mary Wisman and Ann Ryder and Cindy Clark. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And we have Mike Baker out here. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mike.
Thank you.
And Danny. So, and looks like Kathy Wilkin is asking to come in. So, select board members, do we have any changes to the agenda order? Okay, hearing none. Just want to welcome all select board members to the first meeting of the select board year and congratulate Zon and Michael on their re-election this term. And so congratulations. And the first order of business is, do we have a motion to elect a chair and a vice chair?
I have a motion.
Go ahead, Richard.
I motion to elect Zon as chair and Red as vice chair.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on the election of Zon as chair and Miranda as vice chair? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to take a roll call vote. Richard?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Zon?
Aye.
So the motion carries unanimously, and now that Zon has been elected as chair, I'm going to turn the meeting over to him.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, so Zon, I just wanted, before we move on to the business at hand, really to thank Richard for his time as being the select board chair. As many of you may know, Richard has a long history of volunteering for this town and beyond this town for the greater good of people and the planet. And here, in terms of Guilford, being a select board chair has many complicated jobs. Richard ran the select board with a whole lot of care and professionalism and competence, efficiency. And I just felt that I wanted to mark his tenure by saying that I and all of us are truly grateful for the time that you spent at this.
Thank you, Miranda. I really appreciate that.
Yes, I would second and concur as well. My experience has been that you, what I noticed most as being a relatively new select board member is the respect that you have for your fellows. I really appreciate that so much, Richard. I also really delight in your humor, the spirit with which you come to brought to the meetings and so forth. I was also very impressed with diligence in taking care of so many different issues, both here in meetings, but then outside meetings preparation and so forth. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I would just like
That's
to acknowledge the immense amount of work that you put in behind the scenes, Richard. It was noticed and appreciated.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, I also agree that you've done a really good job, Richard, and I'm glad you're staying on the select board.
Yes.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Before we start, I would also just like to say that as chair, thank you for your confidence in me, everyone, and I really hope that we will all be working very much together to move the town forward as we can, and as I made a commitment to work toward Guilford becoming the best town that we can muster. So here's to us all mustering a lot of spirit and energy as we go forward. Thank you. I will depend on everyone, mostly in this first meeting, to get through it. So here we go. So we need to, the next order of business is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So there's a motion from Veranda to approve those minutes. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any discussion about the minutes? All right, seeing none or hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Zahn votes aye. Okay, thank you very much. The next order of business is under the Highway Department. We have three issues we need to address. We need to,
Sorry to interrupt, you should probably get the update from Dan
okay,
first.
do that first. All right, thank you very much. Dan, would you like to provide us with an update?
Congratulations to your new position.
Thank you kindly. You're very sweet.
Well, it's that time of year, I post roads, keep the heavy truck traffic off during mud season. And I need you guys' approval tonight to make it all legal. And I have to post it in a couple of spots. One will be here, and then I'll probably post one over at the covered bridge, and then maybe one at the store. Basically what it is just trying to keep all the heavy trucks off when the road gets off. And it'll be from now, you can only go from now until May 15th. But I always, once the roads start firming up, I start taking them down as soon as I know they can go on. All right, so. The other thing is that last week, we hauled some more sand. My shed is 3/4 full, and completed my sand money. We don't have any money for sand. I got a 3/4 of a shed full of those, so I got probably close to 3,000 yards in the shed right now, so.
I feel
So
okay.
we got enough now, and then hopefully we won't get too many more storms, and that'll give us that more jump for next year. We'll have a pretty good amount of sand to start off with. Salt, I ordered 3 loads this morning to get my sheds full, because I usually fill my salt shed, and I usually put like 100 ton in the corner, and I'll probably have money left over for salt. So, I mean, the other thing is we've had some, pretty high winds. We've lost power here last week, and had trees down, winds down. The roads are just starting to get soft enough so we can go out. I mean, there's some pretty rough roads, but I mean, it's that time of year. And we just go out and just try to smooth them up for the time being. We haven't really got any mud to speak of right now, but we get a good week of good warm weather, then it'll start softening up, so. Other than that, we've been staying pretty busy with all the other stuff we've been doing, so.
Thank you very much. Yes. So we need to look at three issues here. One, we need to act as a select board to approve the posting of the roads.
Yes, as Dan just mentioned, we've got a list of roads, and so I'm just going to share what those are. So for town highways classes 1, 2, 3, and 4 for 2 axle trucks is 15,000 pounds, 3 axle trucks 18,000 pounds, and tractor trailers is 20,000 pounds. For the following roads, as Dan said, until the 15th of May. So there's Stage Road, River Road, Green River Road, Heinsberg Road, the gravel section, Collier Road, Hale Road, Briggs Road, Lee Road, Hayes Road, Bonnievale, Ashworth, and Carpenter Hill Roads, Senator Hunt, Potter Hill, Barney Hill, Fitch, Bullock, Oak Hill, Fairground, Stony Hill, Baker Cross, Sweet Pond Road, Packer Corner, Keats Brook, Tater Lane, Creamery Road, Melody Lane, Butternut Hill, Slate Rock, and East Mountain Roads.
So could I have a motion to approve that, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Michael. Second? Veranda?
I second.
No, Veranda, thank you. All right, is there any discussion? Any further you want to say?
Just to recap, it starts Monday, is that right, or?
I posted them today.
You did today?
Okay.
All the signs are out on the roads today.
And does that mean the mud run for the school buses?
No, not until this starts breaking up.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
Right now,
No mud run
we'll
yet?
keep the school bus routes, try to keep them smooth up best we can, and when it gets real bad, then I'll put them on the
Okay.
mud ones.
Well, it is a relief to have that sign of spring.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, we could have, I hope we don't have mud like we did last year, but you never know. Well, it depends on how it comes out.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I see no one there. All right. So I'll take a roll call, please. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye.
Michael.
Hi.
And Zon says aye. Thank you very much.
Zon, before you move on, Ann Ryder has her hand up. I don't know if it's to a previous topic or a current one.
I'm sorry, Ann. Your hand.
Right. I just wanted to say, I was looking through the minutes for the fall, looking for something, and I noticed that several of the minutes are still in draft form. I know they've been approved, and I just think, I'm assuming they've also been recorded, but on the website, they show draft form. Just a little bit of housekeeping that I noted, so I think those should be no longer in draft form since they've been approved, so thanks.
Thank you, Ann. Yes, I noticed that as well, so make a note of that. All right, the next order of business is to look at the highway annual financial plan and approve that plan.
Yep.
Peter, could you just explain a little bit, please?
Yep, so every year the town is required by VTrans to certify that the taxes that are raised for the highway department meet or exceed the VTrans standards. And so that's called what's affectionately known as TA 60 is the form that the select board certifies. So if somebody would kindly move that we, this legislative body of the municipality of Guilford, certify that the funds raised by municipal taxes are equivalent to or greater than a sum of at least $300 per mile for each mile of class 1, 2, and 3 town highways in the municipality pursuant to 19 VSA section 307.
So moved.
All right, so Richard, all right, we going to second?
I will second.
Michael will second that, all right. Is there any discussion about that?
Well, I
And
just
financial-
wanted, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, clarify for the public here. Is this a pro forma thing that we do every year, or?
Yes, it is.
So you say it's a formality
is.
that all the towns need to do?
Yep, every town across Vermont has to certify that they have raised the minimum standard of taxes that VTrans requires to maintain roads. I think that our highway commissioner would argue that we need more than $300 per mile to maintain our roads, but that's what the minimum VTrans standards is. And so that, yes, this is pro forma.
Right, and we're lucky to have such a trustworthy highway department.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. On to the next
We
order.
need to take a roll call.
Oh, sorry.
Vote.
Oh, sorry, that was, okay, thank you.
That was the discussion.
All right, thank you very much. Here comes the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye.
Michael,
Hi.
and Zon says aye. Thank you. Taking a minute here. All right, now on to the next order of business, which is the Certificate of Road and Bridge Standards. Again, a formality.
Again, yes, this is another pro forma action that the select board has to take every year, as does every town. And this is a certification of compliance that the town's road and bridge standards meet or exceed the VTrans requirements. And so this motion would read as we, the legislative body of the municipality of Guilford, certify that we have reviewed, understand, and comply with the town road and bridge standards / public work specification and standards passed and adopted by the select board on the 14th of March of 2022. And we further certify that our adopted standards do meet or exceed the minimum requirements included in the June 5th, 2019 state-approved template. We further certify that we do have an up-to-date highway network inventory, which identifies location, size, deficiencies in conditions of roads, bridges, causeways, culverts, and highway-related retaining walls on class 1, 2, and 3 town highways, and their estimated cost of repair. I can confirm that we do have all of those.
Thank you. All right, great. Is there any discussion?
Oh, I just wondered whether the highway network inventory was, is that something that's online or is at the town office?
It is not online. We don't currently have a copy of it here at the town office. It was just finished this winter on our behalf by Wyndham Regional Commission. And they are just finalizing the back end of that and uploading all of that data to the state. And actually, Dan and I just talked about that this afternoon. We're actually waiting for them somebody from Wyndham Regional to drop that off at the town office, as well as for Dan.
And so just one follow-up question. So once it's done, will it be posted here so people could look at it?
I mean, it's not really anything individuals are really going to care about. It's a list of every single culvert and bridge in town.
It's
Oh, gee.
everything, what the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They had a young lady last year walk every road
Wow.
and redid the inventory again, but it's what, I think it's like every 10 years they have to upgrade it. So Wyndham Regional hires a college student and she comes, or whoever, she literally walked every road, looked at every culvert and GPS'd it and the whole 9 yards. So you got every culvert there is in town. Did the same with the bridges, the roads. I mean, it's pretty thorough.
Well, that's great.
And there'll be a map one map with all the roads, and then there'll be another map with showing the bridges and the culverts and all the data, so.
And actually, if I can point out, there's a map on the wall right behind Michael. That's actually was a draft that they gave to us in the fall for the road sections. That doesn't have the culverts, so that shows each of the road sections in green are the ones that meet the state standards, yellow partially meet standards, and red do not yet meet standards. So it just is a piece of information.
All right, thank you. I should have asked for a motion to approve this certificate. Could I have a motion to?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Then we have discussion.
Well,
Thank you, thank
sorry,
you.
we jumped, I
That's
jumped
all
the
right,
gun.
that's all right. Fine.
Now we just have.
Is
to-
there any further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, thank you. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Zahn says aye, thank you. All right, now we move on to more pro forma materials, which is in the next area of the agenda, new business. Every year, the select board needs to sign annual conflict of interest statements. And those statements express our personal conflicts, if there are any, and they're read against standard state statutes. We need to get those done and to the town offices a week from today. So we'll get those from Peter, is that correct?
Well, I shared them with the select board in the folder for today's meeting.
Okay, then they're in the folder. If you could fill those out in the folder and get those back to Peter within the week, that would be great.
So there's two portions. There's the 4-page questionnaire that each of you have filled out in the past, and then there's the certificate of you attesting to the truthfulness of your responses.
Right.
And so Peter, is this online and will,
It's
like
it-
print it out at home, or can we fill it in right on our computers?
You'll have to print it, and you know what? It might be as a Word document. Oh, no, they're PDFs. So you'll have to print it out at home and fill it out.
Okay.
You can either drop it off or mail it to us. Or if you have a scanner, you can send it to me.
Is there any further action that's required?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. So the next order of business is to adopt the select board rules of procedure for our meetings. Those were included also in our package for today's meeting. Could I have a motion first so we can begin discussion? Could I have a motion to approve those? Veranda, could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any discussion about the rules of procedure that we want to consider? Peter?
I just would note that, so our rules of procedure are based off of the recommended rules and procedures from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I did compare our existing ones to their draft policy, and there have been no changes in the past year.
Okay, so we're working to be in line with what else is going on across the state.
Mhm.
Good.
I had a question.
Yes, Brenda?
Are these rules of procedure, are they posted on the town website?
Yes, they are.
Uh-huh. I thought that they were really interesting. I read them intensively
I
for
did too.
the first time this year, and I thought that maybe at a future meeting, it would be interesting for us to have a conversation about our own readings of the rules of procedure and how they might affect how we proceed with our meetings.
Yep, great. I think we can talk about that in other business. All right, good, thank you. Next order of
Wait,
business.
do we
I'm
have to
sorry.
vote on
Thank
it?
you, thank you very kindly. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Now we need to adopt the select board rules of procedure. So I'll make a roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and Zan says aye. Thank you. Next, I think, we'll do the newspaper of record. This is another pro forma activity. Every year we have to select a newspaper that we will work with to get all of our information appropriately out into the community. Are we required by state to have one?
Yes,
Yes.
we are. We are required by statutes to have a newspaper of record for posting of all of our legal notices.
Traditionally, that has been the Brattleboro Reformer, although there have been, there was, as I understand, there was one year where we attempted to use the Brattleboro Commons, but that became tricky because our needs for certain dates and deadlines and things couldn't be accommodated by the Commons easily because it's only a weekly paper. So for that reason, we've been using the Reformer. Could I have a motion to approve the Brattleboro Reformer as the newspaper of record? Miranda, second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I'll take a roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Zan says aye. Okay, thank you very much. Now we move on to the annual select board appointments. I understand that each year after the election, after town meeting, I should say, after town meeting, there is a series of appointments that the select board needs to confirm so that the town can continue doing its business, not only as a select board, but with all of our various commissions, committees, and various forms of office that we have in our town. So we need to read that list.
That's correct.
We need to read the list out of the appropriate select board appointments that we're making at this time, and then we will ask for a motion to approve them.
I would also add that all of the names that are being read on this list, all of the individuals have been contacted and have all agreed to continue for another term of appointment. So what I'm going to do, just to simplify the process, I'm going to read the office, read the individual's name and the term length, but I'm not going to say each category as I read through. Does that make sense?
I don't know what you mean by each category.
So I'm not going to say office, road commissioner, name, Dan
Oh, I see
Zembrowski.
what you mean. Okay, yeah. I understand.
So the individuals and terms are as follows: road commissioner Dan Zembrowski for 1 year, delinquent tax collector Penny Marine for 1 year, emergency management director Peter Rude for 1 year, Conservation Commission Linda Hecker for 3 years, Conservation Commission Linda Lemke for 3 years, Conservation Commission Karen Murphy for 3 years, and Conservation Commission Steve Sosniski for 3 years. Planning Commission, just as a reminder, the Planning Commission, because they were appointed in the middle of a year that they need to be reappointed to continue their term. So that would be Jeanette Tokars for 3 years, Michael Sostak for 1 year, Jethro Eaton for 2 years, Julie Holland for 3 years, Charles Light for 2 years. Recreation Commission, Chris Zapala for 3 years. Wyndham Regional Commission, Gabby Ciafreda for 1 year, Steve Lemke for 1 year. The Town Pound, Mary Ann Lawrence, for 1 year. The Floodplain Administrator, Steve Lemke, 1 year. Energy Coordinator, Gary Swindler, 1 year. Green Up Day Coordinators are being shared between Jamie Durham and Jethro Eaton for 1 year. The Tree Warden, Dan Zambreski, for 1 year. Wyndham Solid Waste Management District Director, Michael Becker, 1 year. The Bullock Education Scholarship Committee, Carol Schnabel, 1 year. Rescue Trustee, Gordon Little, 1 year. And DB Fiber Representative, Zon Eastes, 1 year.
Thank you, Peter. Could I have a motion to approve this? Miranda, could I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any discussion about these appointments?
Well, we're just lucky to have such a broad range of really stellar volunteers.
Yep, that's well noted. Thank you. Thank you all for everyone who is about to be appointed or reappointed. Don? Oops. You're on mute, Don.
Do we have to unmute him?
No, he has to do it.
Yeah, I did it. The Bullock Education Fund terms, I believe, are for 3 years. 3 year staggered terms. So if Carol's term is up, then she would be presumably being reappointed for a 3-year term.
Thank you for the correction, Don. I'll make note of that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Zan says aye. Thank you. All right, the next order of business on the agenda is annual select board goals. Each year, the select board produces a set of goals that it keeps track of during the course of the year, attempts to make progress on. I would, rather than approve a set of goals this evening, I think we should table them for a future meeting at which we could look at them in depth, maybe have some folks look at them in depth. So I think what I would like to ask is if there are 1 or 2 people that would be willing to look at these goals and make sure that we're on track for next year. Is there Miranda?
I'm willing to.
And Michael. All right, thank you very kindly. So we'll make note of that. Do we need
Yes.
to approve them or anything?
As long as you informally agree as a board that you're okay with Michael and Veranda doing so, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Very kindly.
So let me just be clear. So Michael and I will meet or talk together and bring our recommendations about a revision of the goals back to the whole group. Is that what we're agreeing to do?
I think that would be good, yes.
Is that good for you, Michael?
Yeah, I do want to ask, we looked at this like within the last
2 meetings ago, I think?
No,
or
one
a month,
meeting
or
ago.
just last meeting? Okay.
Yep, last
Okay.
meeting.
So, I mean, do we just historically revisit it after the?
I think there are things that we'll want to fine tune because they were responding to sort of last year's conditions, and not that the big picture of the goals would change, but I think that the way that the amount and kind of things that we want to do might change, or we might want to add or add greater priority to something.
Sure.
Yeah, I would just note that, for instance, last year, I don't see any strong language about ARPA funding because we didn't know very much about it when they were put together. So that might come into this year's plan with a different kind of focus than we would otherwise have. All right, thank you both very much for being willing to do that. All right, next order of business is a resolution in support of Ukraine as requested at our last meeting by Rusty. So we have a resolution that Peter's prepared to read that's it's in alignment with other resolutions that are appearing around the nation. So we'll take a moment, listen to that, and then we'll discuss it. All right? Thank you.
So just as to add to what Zon said, So the resolution that was drafted took parts from the resolution that was approved by the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as was another one that was passed by the Vermont legislature as well. So there's a little bit of legal ease in here, so please bear with me. I have shared this previously with the Select Board. Whereas on January 21, 1990, more than 300,000 Ukrainians called for unity and independence from the Soviet Union. Whereas on December 1, 1991, more than 90% of Ukrainian citizens voted in a national referendum in support of independence, with majorities in every region. Whereas in February and March of 2014, the Russian Federation invaded the peninsula of Crimea, illegally annexing the region, holding a sham referendum, and claiming the territory to be a part of Russia. Whereas beginning in April 2014, the Russian Federation invaded Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine, instigating violence, stoking conflict, arming separatists, and spreading disinformation on Ukrainian soil. Whereas on July 17, 2014, Russian soldiers or Russian separatist fighters shot down the passenger flight MH17 flying over Donbass with a Buk surface-to-air missile provided by the Russian Federation, killing all 298 innocent passengers on board. Whereas the Russian military conducted a large-scale buildup in and around Ukraine in March and April of 2021 under the guise of military exercises, leaving significant military equipment behind. Whereas on February 21, 2022, the State Duma of Russia passed a bill approved by President Vladimir Putin to officially recognize the self-proclaimed Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic as independent. Whereas on February 21, 2022, Vladimir Putin ordered Russian troops into the self-proclaimed Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic, and after recognizing their independence, ordered Russian troops into that territory. It was not only a violation of international law, Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and the Minsk agreements, but also tantamount to declaration of war. Whereas on February 24, 2022, Russian forces enabled by Belarus launched an unprovoked full-scale renewed invasion of the peaceful independent country, Ukraine. Whereas it is the right of all countries to decide their own future, foreign policy, and security agreements free from outside interference or coercion. Whereas the Russian Federation repeatedly lied about the massive buildup of military forces around Ukraine and claimed that reports Russia would invade Ukraine were hysteria. Whereas Russian forces have targeted civilians and committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. Whereas in the days since this renewed full-scale war began, Russian citizens have taken to the streets and cities and towns across Russia to protest Putin's illegitimate and destructive war waged against the peaceful and sovereign Ukraine. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Guilford demands an immediate ceasefire and full withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territory, supports unequivocally Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, backs the continued use of sanctions in coordination with the United States, allies, and partners to fully isolate the Putin regime economically for its unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, urges the U.S. and its allies and partners to deliver additional and immediate defense security assistance to help Ukraine address the armored, airborne, and other threats they're facing from Russian forces, and declares that the Crimea and the territories illegally controlled by the illegitimate Russian-controlled governments in Donetsk and Luhansk are sovereign Ukrainian territory, and declare that the war in Ukraine, a democratic country, is the front line of democracy and freedom versus authoritarianism represented by Putin's Russia, and support the right of the Russian people to protest, including current protests against Putin's unprovoked war against Ukraine, and demand the immediate release of all those who have been unjustly detained in Russia for expressing their desire for peace, and state unambiguously that it will never recognize or support any illegitimate Russian-controlled leader or government installed through the use of force, and that only the people of Ukraine can choose their leadership through free and fair democratic elections without foreign interference, intervention, or coercion, and stand steadfastly, staunchly, proudly, and fervently behind the Ukrainian people in their fight against the authoritarian Putin regime.
Thank you, Peter. May I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I so move.
Thank you, Richard. May I have a second?
I think Rusty just seconded.
Second, okay, thank you, Rusty. Is there any discussion?
Well, I would say that it's a very, I mean, I know intellectually and emotionally and psychologically that our putting out this, our motion to do this has very little significance, but I think that it's symbolically important for individuals and towns and states to be able to speak this kind of language about the aggression and the heartbreak that we're seeing in the world today.
Thank you. Any other comments? Christina says yes. All right, thank you very much. I will take a roll call vote then. Richard?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Michael? Aye. Zahn says aye. Thank you very much. Thanks for reading that, Peter.
And thank you, Rusty, for
Yes.
bringing it forward.
Yes, thank you, Rusty. All right, the next order of business is by request of Ann Ryder. It's the Algiers Fire District, number 1, billing history. Ann, do you want to talk with us?
I do, and I pulled together some information. I'm going to highlight a few things. I hope this is going to take a little bit of time because a lot of this is historic, but what I intend to do is send you all a copy of this information that I've gathered about the history of the Algiers Fire District so that you have it at your fingertips. Basically, the Algiers Fire District was set up in the early 90s because the state wanted to create the Guilford Welcome Center, and they needed to get water there, and the sewer line needed to go through the village of Algiers. And because it was not a sewer system to serve all of Guilford, they had this mechanism called the fire district in which they create a little tiny municipality within a bigger town so that those people who are served by whatever it is, in this case sewer services, pay for that service, and the other people in Guilford do not. So it's a little municipality where they pay for the service and then they receive the service. So people in Guilford, in Algiers, receive the services of a sewer system. Later on, quite a bit later, we discovered that we wanted to have water in this district too. Several people in Algiers had failing wells, and also Commonwealth wanted water, and we wanted water down in Algiers, so we wanted to bring water to this same district. I as a member of the select board and the administrator went to the town of Brattleboro, and interestingly they said, why would we do business with you? You don't pay your bills. And we were like, what are you talking about? And this was how we discovered that actually there had been embezzlement going on in the village of Algiers Fire District. And that was unearthed and that was dealt with, and again, that's detailed in this information I've compiled. But as a result of that, we said, this poor little fire district has this tiny little prudential committee, and they have a person doing their billing. They're really not designed to be a municipality. And so the town of Guilford took over the billing for Algiers for the water as well as the sewer system. I think I'm right about that. The town of Brattleboro is involved with this too. It's pretty complicated. You've got Commonwealth, you've got Dairy, you've got Omega, you've got a lot of different players in this deal that we worked out. So, but nonetheless, Guilford took over the billing. And there's a lot more detail in here, but I'm not going to go through all of it. It had to do with the loan from the USDA, and we needed to have this structure for them. Flash forward to the fall of this year, and the select board received a letter from Penny as town treasurer saying that they were no longer going to do the billing for the Algiers Fire District. They were resigning. Penny had looked through, and there was a contract between Algiers Fire District and the town of Guilford from 2017, but Penny saw that it had never been signed. I don't know, that needs to be investigated. Nonetheless, they were shorter staffed, did not have the staffing to do this additional work, and also the Algiers Fire District admittedly was slow with their billing, slow with their process. At this point, and I think Will is there with you, I'm not sure about Mike Baker, but at
Yeah,
this
they're
by
both
then,
here,
there are
Ann.
only 2 members left of the Prudential Committee willing to serve, because it's just an onerous task with no reward. They meet monthly, they have to sign the warrants. And so suddenly they had nobody doing the billing. And I spoke with Penny this afternoon and about this situation. You can understand why I'd be concerned. Suddenly bills were not going to be paid. The town of Guilford was once again going to be in arrears to the town of Brattleboro. And Penny had been working behind the scenes, and she emailed me and told me that she spoke with a person at Nemrick, and that Nemrick is willing to do the bills, and they will get back on track. As again, I'm speaking in very broad strokes. There's a lot more information here, which I will share with you in writing. But the bottom line, I think, and what we tried to do when I was on the board, is absorb into the town of Guilford the Algiers Fire District, have it cease to exist. This requires a change in the charter of the town of Guilford. And so we wanted to get a lawyer involved in helping us do this kind of legalese procedure. But like some things happened, it got dropped along the way and we never completed that task. So I want to encourage the select board to investigate this issue, which is one of those kind of, it feels little until you end up with something like embezzlement or something bad happening.
Right.
I think the best thing would be to have the town of Guilford absorb the Algiers Fire District. That would take some research, probably the hiring of a lawyer. I will tell you, there's a lawyer named Jim Barlow who used to work for VLCT, who is now on his own, does municipal law. This is right up his alley. Anyway, it needs more talk, but I wanted to introduce it and tell you I have talked with Penny about it, and as I said, I'm going to share this information, but I'm really hoping as the select board sets its goals for this year, that tidying up this kind of messy situation is one of your goals. And Will, I defer to you to add any other information. I just wanted to give that overview.
Mike is also here as well.
All right.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Sheila to just be, her hand is up just quickly. Sheila, do you have a question or comment?
I'm not in a rush, I can wait.
Okay, good. Come right up. Want to come right up here?
So here's the letter that we received from the town. Actually, both of these. And thank you, Ann.
Yes, I'd second that. Thank you, Ann, for spearheading this whole discussion and working on toward a solution.
Because we'd also like to say that, you know, that the committee, we're supposed to have 5 members, and now we're down to just Will and myself. So we really don't even have a quorum here. You know what I mean? So legally, can we even run it this way? You know what I mean? So we'd like you guys to take that in consideration too, please. So.
All right.
And our terms are up. Will's is up in,
I was going to suggest those be submitted. These are the bylaws for the committee, the Prudential Committee, and of the Algiers Fire District, and the membership list, well, as it was last printed, which is, as Mike just said, there's only 2 of us right now. It's supposed to be a 5-member committee.
and it'll show you
So
that.
it's impossible really for us to even reach a forum to conduct any business. And because of COVID, it's been, I mean, we've tried recruiting members in the past. We have not had much luck. We've had attrition for various reasons. And In the past, I would say that we've had, 8 years or so, or 10 years that I've been on the committee, we've had one member of the Algiers Fire District attend a meeting, aside from the Prudential Committee itself. So there's not much interest in the town to become a member or do the work that membership involves. I will also add that there may be another option, but I think it would need to be discussed between the town of Guilford and Brattleboro. I spoke with Yoshi, the town manager at Brattleboro, and I also spoke with Dan, who's taken over the water department. I forget Dan's last name.
Tyler?
Tyler, today, just to offer an alternative, that is that the town of Brattleboro take over the billing. If you look at it, for example, the dairy is in Brattleboro, so that's one point in favor of it being an outreach of Brattleboro through the town of Algiers. The town of Guilford handling the billing is kind of a loop on the side for the bookkeeping, which the town of Brattleboro is already set up to do all that. It's just another alternative that may or may not make any sense.
Will, but
to
and
either
just
of the
to add
towns.
to that, Will,
Go ahead.
when we had spoken to Brattleboro earlier, they had refused to do the billing. It would be wonderful if they've had a change of heart. We had pushed that avenue quite a bit years ago, so.
It just seems to me to make sense that,
Yep.
what sort of made even less sense in the past is that, that the Prudential Committee, for one reason or another, I understand there were legal reasons for it having to be set up and financial reasons for it having to be set up. But if you look at the billing process, the bills were sent out by the town, approved by the committee, back to the town for collection, and then payment to Brattleboro. So the service is really provided by Brattleboro. We don't go out and dig up sewer lines. Neither the town of Brattleboro nor the Prudential Committee has anything really to do. And additionally, if there are delinquent accounts there, I looked into I was delinquent collector for a while. I tried doing that, and I managed to collect a few $1,000s maybe. But it's quite a process. Peter can attest to the fact that there are about 17 steps between a delinquent notice and being able to do a tax sale. And once you start that process with any one delinquent member, you have to notify any other delinquent member. There are 100 and some members there.
106.
So you have to essentially keep a file for, I'm not equipped to do that. A small, volunteer committee is not really able to handle that sort of thing.
Okay,
So,
well, thank you.
These are the reasons that it's kind of fallen into the disrepair that it has. And I understand that, it was a difficult process of working with the town back and forth as our numbers grew fewer, and we were not able really to keep up with the needs of running a municipality, essentially.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for this information. Thank you, Anne. Thank you.
As I said, I will send the information that I compiled to each member of the select board as well as Peter.
Thank you. Sheila.
Thank you. So Peter will remember that early on in his tenure, we investigated, we went through all of the Algiers Village Fire District documents that we have both online and hard copy, and we were looking to see if there was another way to do this. And I think out of that came the fact that Peter and then maybe Penny later on would do the billing on behalf of the Prudential Committee. I confess to an annoyingly nerdy acquaintance with all of these documents, and if they're still there, I would be willing to help sort through them again and really define the issue at hand, which I think is more than billing by a certain entity, because we have. I say this as an individual, not as a member of the Finance Committee, but the Finance Committee did raise the question of whether or not water and sewer lines should be moved, come farther into Guilford in different ways with some of the ARPA funds. So, but apart from that issue, there is the issue of what's the relationship between the Algiers Village Fire District and the town of Guilford. And if it was only billing, I would say fine, hand it over to Brattleboro and be done with it. But it's not. We have a water fund line that we've been funding for a long time in case we need to make repairs to the existing line or something else. And so I think this is it's a great thing that Ann has brought it up, that Will and Mike are here representing them, but it's a complex, it's an issue that requires a fair amount more research before we can even get to a decision point that the select board would take.
Thank you, Sheila.
I wanted to say that I know, that's why I said earlier, this is not anything to be dealt with tonight, but to be introduced. And I want to thank Penny, who said that, and who's worked to make sure the billing will get back on track. So Mike and Will, you will know that she's getting it back on track using NEMRIC services. But I think it would be a really valuable thing. Sheila's investigating. The funny thing is there's the sewer and there's the water. One's owned by Brattleboro, one's owned by Guilford. So I think it really requires some significant investigation.
Great. Richard?
Yes, can I suggest that perhaps we form a small committee that includes Sheila and Ann and Penny and a select board member to go further with this and bring back a recommendation to us?
Brilliant idea. All right. I think that's a good idea. We would probably need to is there a select board member that has the stomach for this, willing to jump into this? We start the process with this. Peter would like to say something.
Well, I would just like to recommend, before starting a committee, I think going back to something that Ann said earlier, I think a step that needs to happen before that is we need to reach out to the town's attorney to see because the Algiers Fire District, as Ann noted, is the simplest form of municipal incorporation in the state. So they are, like Ann said, a mini town within a town. So we have two towns that are trying to work together. So I think that we should, which I would obviously do, contact our attorney whose specialty is municipal law and get their input and advice, and then report that back to the select board. And then depending on the nature of that advice, then we can find out the necessity of forming a committee to do further work.
How does that sound to people?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, so let's for now table appointing anyone or a committee. Let's wait till we hear from Peter, perhaps at the next meeting, and then we can put together a committee forthwith. Does it seem reasonable?
Is that okay to these guys too?
Yes, that's fine, and we'd like to be notified and perhaps participate.
Absolutely. I think that's great. Wonderful.
And I just wanted to add one other thing about even the billing is not really a simple matter if Brattleboro were to take it over, as Dan Tyler pointed out to me today. there's no metering of the water in Algiers, and that's how their billing system is set up. And the billing for water and sewer are connected in Brattleboro, so your sewer bill is based upon your water usage. So there being no metering in Guilford, that would present a billing problem all its own. So, I mean, we have it set up so that the billing is based on, I believe, the number of bathrooms in a residence and an assumption of a certain amount of water usage.
I see.
And there are a few meters. I mean, the dairy is metered, and
But
I
that's
think the others, I'm not sure. But anyway.
Okay. It sounds like there's a lot of information that needs to get all put together.
A lot of layers
Yeah,
to
okay.
investigate.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
It
Thank
sounds
you.
like a very long, frustrating journey too, that nobody really was inspired to set up, but it's one of those things that cascades, sort of like water.
Or other things.
Or other things, yes.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Ann, very much. All right, we'll stay in touch. All right. Let's move ahead, folks. We have a little bit more to do this evening. The next order of business is to discuss masks in town buildings. And I think that this, let Peter talk, but I think this is primarily a clarification that we just need to get out there.
So since town meeting day, the town, as well as since the announcement by the Vermont Department of Education that the mask requirements in all schools was going to be lifted effective today, or decision was going to be put into the hands of individual schools effective today. Many of us in the town have received many questions and comments as far as the actions of the select board as far as the requirement of masks within town buildings. And I can provide an update. So this is from the Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development, who has been the primary voice as far as what municipalities and employers in Vermont can do in interpreting the Vermont Department of Health's requirements. And so as of today, all statewide mask recommendations and requirements have been lifted. So municipalities across the state may leave their mask requirements in place at their discretion until no later than the 30th of April of this year, at which time the governor's order permitting towns to make those requirements will expire. So it is basically at the discretion of the select board what you want to do for the next 6 weeks as far as whether or not you want to require masks or just simply recommend them, or allow individuals to make their own personal decision.
Optional mask. Are there, Richard?
I would be in favor of letting folks make their own decision at this point.
Rusty, I saw your hand.
Yes, I'm agreeing with Richard. I think it's time we lift it and leave it up to the individual whether they want to wear a mask or not.
Okay. All right.
I can also support that.
I think I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. I mean, do we need to have sort of unison?
No, certainly, don't need unison.
Your decision is up to you.
But we need, the board needs to make a decision, I guess, this evening that whether we want to change. We need to make a decision about whether or not we want to continue with it as it is, which is a mask requirement, or do we want to change that?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what I should do instead of asking for discussion at this point is to ask for a motion.
I move that mask in town buildings be up to individual choice.
I'll second.
Out of Guilford.
Second. Rusty seconds that. All right. Now, do you wish to discuss that, Brenda?
So the school children are no longer wearing masks, is that
They
what?
still
I'm-
are, actually.
This
Those are
week, they
last-
still, or at least till tomorrow, after, there's gonna be a discussion tomorrow, is that?
That's correct, yes. There was discussion of it being lifted, and they were actually, I believe, well, I mean, there's been a change at the school. I think the plan was today, but then kind of last minute, it got extended until this public forum that's scheduled.
Mhm.
And from what I understand, apparently Wyndham Southeast was the only school district in the state to have this public forum about continuing the mask requirement.
All others lifted it?
That's correct.
I see, so,
Mhm.
okay. Is there any discussion from the community? Anyone who's here that would like to say anything as part of this discussion? Ann?
I think that I would be in favor of the mask optional policy. I think we've learned, the science has shown that masks can protect the individual wearing them. So if a person feels that they need that protection, they can wear a mask. But I think our numbers are going down dramatically. The spread is really being contained, and I think it's appropriate for people who do not wish to continue to wear one to have that option.
Thank you. Kathy?
People have requested that they be allowed to make their own choice at the library, and I was here to say, to ask you to do this vote. So,
Okay, all right.
that's the word from the library.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you. I think then that we can take a vote at this point. I'll take a roll call vote, starting with Richard.
Aye.
Rusty.
Aye.
Miranda.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
And Zon says aye. Okay, so as of now, masks are optional in all town buildings. Is it now or tomorrow?
Well, it'll be effective now. I mean, I'll make sure that signs go up.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I'll make sure that, you know, obviously Kathy can let everyone know at the library, and I'll let the highway department know.
All right.
So do we have this dramatic moment where
Yes,
we
we
take off?
we mask or not, depending on how we feel.
Right.
You know, it's up to everyone here. Richard's unmasked and Rusty's not wearing a mask. Richard?
Yes, I just want to make sure that we get the word out in all the appropriate places as pervasively as possible.
All right, so that,
I'll put it on the town website, I'll put it on Front Porch Forum. Yeah.
okay. And maybe someone in the community who's here tonight would be happy to put it up on the Guilford Facebook page, perhaps, that this got passed. Thank you, Kathy, that's great. Good. All right, thank you very much, folks. The next order of business is to talk about the ARPA funding applications and to schedule our first review. I'd like to open this discussion just here among us, but with the community here as well, to talk about the fact that we, when Guilford first got wind of this money, we stepped right up with a lot of passion about what we planned to do with this money and how we wanted to meet the needs that we understood in the community. We've also learned along the way that the program has changed somewhat. There are final rules that are out now. We received a version of those recently. We're working on that to clarify those and get those out to the community. We also we had a round of applicants who applied for funds from the town as part of the ARPA program. And that's what we need to discuss this evening. And I'd like to lay out my view of this, and just as a place to start. I believe that the applications that we received are in two categories. There are categories of folks that are responding because of prior loss due to COVID, and there were applicants that applied for future investment in our community. And I think there's a pretty clear line between those. I think it's important to say at this point also that Guilford will ultimately receive as a total around $630,000 for the ARPA funds. We need to obligate all of those funds no later than December 31st of 2024, and they all need to be spent by 2 years after that, December 2026. So we have been advised by practically everyone we've talked to that we need to think about this process and move forward. So if we look at the prior loss applicants, which can be divided into businesses and organizations, and then individuals and households, so those are two groups, I would recommend that we as a select board can look immediately at the businesses and organizational prior losses, and we can look at those applications very soon and make some decisions about money that needs to go to those folks in support of their need. For the individuals, and this is a little tricky and a little dicey, but I want to propose that the select board look at the idea of earmarking a certain amount of funds from the $630,000 total that we will commit to individuals and households, and that we continue looking at applications and hand out a certain amount of money, but that we not just include the individual and household projects as part of the overall picture in competition, say, with businesses and so forth. It just seems like we owe these individuals and households a different look. And so I would propose that we discuss a figure that we could look at. Then I think with the future, the investment projects, it strikes me that we would do well to open the conversation up in our community about where we need to spend this money. What are our top priorities for spending this amount of money, whatever would be remaining after we get done from looking at the prior loss applications. And that we develop a sense of where this money could be used best in the town, and bring forward then those applications that we've already received into a conversation about how we can go forward with more of an understanding from the community. I hope I'm making sense as I talk to everyone, and that this is this is my view of what I think would make good sense, and I'd love to have a few moments to hear from select board members and then members of the community about these ideas. So to just sum it up quickly, I think we can look very soon at the applications, and there aren't many, from businesses and organizations that offered prior loss need statements to us. Then we would look and we would consider the idea of earmarking a certain amount of dollars for individual and household out of the 630, and then the third part would be that we would then talk to the community and develop a way to look at broader, for the town, investments that we all can make together. Richard?
I think that's essential that we respond to the businesses and organizations, but you're calling the prior loss this month, that we review those applications and try to make decisions this month. I know that I was in touch with the businesses and told them that it would be this month, so we have to do it this month.
Yeah.
We have to. So for that cut of the applications, we need to act on them within the month of March.
Okay, thank you. I think we can. Veranda. Sorry, Richard.
I was just going to say, so I'm hoping that the select board can schedule a time tonight that we would review the applications, and then it would probably have to be a special select board.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Veranda.
Yes, I communicated with the individual households that had submitted applications, and I told them that they would be, I hoped that they would be getting a response in March.
Okay, all right, so we need to figure that out as well. So, any other comments anyone would like to make?
Yes, I think that the idea of looking at the community investments, more closely is a very good idea, and that we should form, if we can, an advisory committee
Yes.
that would have both select board members and members of the public to really think about, a small committee, but to really think about where the money is best spent.
Yeah, I'm seeing this as an opportunity for community engagement. It needn't be hugely long or anything, but it's a way that we can have a community conversation about how best to use these funds. So yes, I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Richard. Any other ideas, thoughts, reactions? Peter?
And as I shared with Zon earlier today, I guess one of concern that I have is the organizations that have applied through the previous process that the select board set up for what Zon is calling the forward-looking projects to invest, in the community. I guess my concern is those who thought that there was one process put in place are now going to be told that there's a completely different process for their consideration. And so I'm just a little concerned that some of those organizations may be upset by this change when they thought something completely different was in place.
Yes. I hear you, thank you. I don't know if anyone has a response to that.
Christina has her hand.
Christina?
Sorry, I don't have a response to that. I'm waiting to ask another question.
Oh, all right, okay, thank you. Any other? Richard?
Yeah, one more thing, I think that we do have to respond to the final rule before money is distributed. And the final rule simply says that we will take the standard deduction rather, and be able to dispense the money as government services. And I really, I think members of the select board, and I sent Zon several iterations of this, and the select board several iterations of this. It's not very complicated, it's just that we need to say, we'll take the standard deduction, which means that the town takes all the money as basically saying, and what was Peter up to $10 million loss?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the town basically says that it was impacted up to $10 million in revenue loss, and therefore it can take a standard deduction and be able to distribute this money without strings attached, which makes the distribution and the reporting so much easier. And it's what the VLCT advises that we do. But what I'm suggesting is that we do that before we distribute the money.
Yes.
Great. Perhaps we could do that this evening, I'm not sure. I think we probably
I hope we can.
Okay,
I think-
good, good.
Can we do it even if this particular vote wasn't on the agenda?
So technically, and this is something that Richard and I have talked at length about one-on-one as well as in communication with Katie. So on a technical level, the select board actually doesn't have to take any specific formal action to take the standardized loss. That simply by moving forward with the process, the Treasury Department makes the assumption that the town will be taking the standardized loss. Now, if the select board did not want to do that, then you would have to actually make a formal motion stating that you feel it will be in the best interest of the town to use the itemized calculator, which based on previous calculations I did in the fall on the calculator the Treasury had put out at that time, that would not be, in my opinion, the best interest of the town, because it would not enable us to use 100% of these funds as government services. So I would agree with Richard. And so you don't have to make a formal action. If you informally agree to take that standardized deduction, we just move forward with our actions, and the Treasury assumes that's the action we've chosen.
Brenda?
So, Peter, I think it's so important that you should duly note it in the minutes that, even if we're not voting on it, the sense of the select board is that this is our direction that we've chosen.
Absolutely.
Great, so
I agree with that. I think that
Rusty does
say it
too.
and have it in the minutes.
Great. Rusty, you agree?
Yes.
All right, Michael?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. So we'll put it, thank you,
I'll make sure
Richard,
it's in
for
this.
leading that. Thank you very much.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes, and then Christina.
Just, are we gonna set, since we're gonna do it this way, are we gonna set our own set of standards on how we're delivering the money? I think we should, just so they don't think we're pulling the figures out of the air. You know what I mean?
Keep talking, I'm not sure I understand.
You know, when you're basing on how much people get, well, we have to go by, what standards are we using
Oh,
to
yes.
give the money out?
Right.
As opposed to just saying, okay, this is this company and we're gonna give them whatever, and not explain how we got to that figure.
I think that, if I understand correctly, I think we'll need to do most of that kind of conversation actually in executive session, because we will be talking about both individuals and people in the community, and we will be talking about money, and so we probably have to do that.
I understand personally, but I'm talking a set, so people will know what we are going by when
Oh, I
we're
see.
making decisions.
Yes, I think that probably would, yes, I hope that we can develop a standard and we can do that in an executive session and then publish what we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Richard?
There's another way to do it, which would be to use either letters or numbers to discuss the proposals in public. So we would be
Okay.
discussing the proposals, I mean, they would be recognizable. But I'm not urging this, I'm just suggesting that that's an alternative to number the applicants and not use names.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me think about that with Peter, and maybe I'll talk with you, Richard, about that before we make a decision about that, but yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, good. Christina?
Okay, well, now my question is timely because of Richard's comment and Rusty's comment. I assumed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I assumed that if individual applicants are applying for ARPA funds, that is executive session kind of a thing, that it's confidential. But that businesses that apply or nonprofit organizations that apply, that is not confidential. So I have two questions. If that's one of the, is that correct? And how, of the current applications, how many were businesses, how many were nonprofit organizations, how many were individuals, and can the public know who the businesses and nonprofits are, and if so, when?
Yes, let's see, help me here, Peter. I think, Richard, perhaps you can help me too. If I understand correctly, Christina, I think that businesses and organizations are, when it comes to this sort of situation, this is all new, we're all learning as we go along, but my understanding is that at least when we're talking about the relative merits and weights, that businesses and organizations need to be treated like individuals and households, that we can't out these people in the community in a certain way. Obviously, it will be clear. We may not be able to speak about the specific names and amounts and so forth like that of applications, but we can talk about the character of things, and obviously the community will know who is receiving these funds as we go forward. That's what I understand.
Yeah, we did run this by our lawyer, and the lawyer said that we, if I recall correctly, that by statute we weren't allowed to talk about in public individual finances, and I don't know if I can't remember if that applied to business finances as well. But the statute, I read the statute when the lawyer sent us the letter, and it was definitely individual, and I wonder also, if it's a business, if we're talking about a business loss, whether it's appropriate to talk about a business loss, a business's, lost revenue in public. We could go back to that letter, Peter. Do you remember?
Yeah, just off the top of my head, so he did state that individuals in privately owned businesses should be discussed. If we're not going to do the system that Richard proposed earlier of giving them a number or a letter to designate them without, specifically speaking to what type of business they are. But if it's a public business, then all of their financials are in the public, and same with the nonprofit organizations. All of their financials are also public knowledge. So he said that those two, for public businesses or nonprofits, that's at the discretion of the select board. For privately owned businesses whose financial information is not public, as well as individuals, his recommendation was that the financial information only was the only part that was protected by law. All other aspects of the application had to be discussed in public.
Okay, thank you. I see, I don't, is that Marin Wisman?
Hi, it's Mary.
Mary, thank you, I'm sorry, okay.
That's fine. I'm just trying to get this clear in my head. And I think it was Richard mentioned, if we were to take all the money at one time, that we would have to, I wrote it down here, we would have to have 10 million in revenue loss in the town. Did I hear that right?
No, Mary, it's up to 10 million, so that's the treasury saying it's
Up
if
to
it's
10
over-
million.
if
Okay,
it's over-
thank
if
you.
it's- Yeah, if it's over 10 million, then other rules apply.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was gonna ask you where the 10 million came from.
Yeah, you know, we'd like to have it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Christine, I'd like to just return to your comment quickly and just to characterize for you that we're looking right now at about 15 applications. And it's split about half and half, roughly, between those that are reporting prior loss and those that are reporting a future investment. So that's the general ballpark. And the when is going to roll out in steps as we're talking about right now. Could I propose, could we have a special board meeting a week from tonight at regular select board meeting time to go through this? I see a couple of heads nodding. Yeah, all right. Okay, so let's book that, and we'll see if we can if we can't do that. All right, that's we've got one of those things done. Could I talk quickly with the board about the idea of could I have reactions and thoughts about the idea of earmarking a certain amount of dollars that would be set aside specifically for individuals, and so and I'll characterize quickly why I think this is a thought we could do. Because the applications that we received are really very across a wide spectrum. It became very clear to us that some people who applied for funds have never written a grant proposal in their lives. They really don't quite understand what's going on. And some people that wrote applications are very sophisticated grant writers, and there was quite a spread. And I think we need to consider not only the grants that we've received, but we need to consider there's probably greater need in the community. I'm of the opinion that if we were to make this information public about grants that we're rewarding, there would be many people in our community would feel like, wait, I'm in that same crowd and I didn't understand something. So I think if we had a certain amount of money that we were going to give over to this part of the program, I think that we could then, it's very common to do in granting organizations, there's a cap on the amount of money that can be spent. And then we could then hand out that amount of money to folks in our community in this realm. And I don't think that's a change in the program, it's just a further defining of the program. But I'd like to have reactions. Peter.
I would consider that. I mean, the applications which we all read, and notwithstanding that some people were skilled at application writing and others were less skilled, but some of the applications were, in my view, not really relevant to the criteria that we had established. Right. So we have to deal with, I think we have to deal with that reality as well.
Yes. Any other?
So, I mean, what were you thinking of a figure?
I would just throw out a figure to start a discussion. I would like to, and I'm open to consideration, that I think that we should put a cap. It doesn't mean we need to spend it all, but that we would put a cap for the individual needs in our community at $60,000. And that's what we would commit to helping people understand. We must understand that also if we view these dollars, these ARPA dollars for individuals and households, as really sort of like bridge funding, as it were, really to the more helpful money that we know already exists in the state. There are other programs that we could direct people toward, that we could help people understand more about. We need to be able to do that, and I think we don't need to feel responsible for meeting all the needs that there are in our community, but helping people move toward those. And I think that this amount like $60,000 would help us do that. Miranda, then Ann.
Oh, okay. Just pertinent to the individual needs. I have a telephone meeting with Leah Gessner of Guilford Cares tomorrow for the two of us to work out a cooperative strategy of reviewing the help lists that both of us have gathered, and to try to look at how we could make a powerful volunteer response in, understanding really what's out there, and to maybe get a team of people interested in being a liaison as needed.
Great.
So
that's wonderful.
Would this cap be based on the total combined 2 phases, or is this a number we're capping, putting in place for the first phase? Because
I would think it would be. I would suggest it for both. It would be the entire.
The reason I ask is, I'm wondering what hypothetical situation, but if many more individual applicants applied in the second phase, would we be prepared for that?
I would propose that. Anything that we see, anything we determine is up for adjustment. I would suggest, but I think that as a guideline, I'm just again proposing a number like that, and that I think we should also consider a cap for any individual gift, that we won't spend over a certain amount, and we need to determine what that is. Anne, you had a comment?
Yes, I had, and really, Zahn, I like your idea very much of creating a kind of a separate fund for high needs individuals, but it really dovetails with Miranda's suggestion of having liaisons, because there is a lot of money out there now that is not ARPA funding to support individuals who've been hit hard by the pandemic. And I think it would be kind of a shame if ARPA money was filling a void that could be filled by other funding sources.
Right.
So I really like Miranda's idea of, if she said to Joe Q. Citizen, are you aware there's this heating fund? Are you aware here's another way you can meet that need rather than just the ARPA funding? So it broadens the task. I understand that, but I think it might be worth it. But Zahn, I also totally endorse your idea of putting a set amount of capping the amount of money that goes in that direction.
Thank you. Richard?
I wonder if it's wiser to put a cap on the amount of money that is distributed to each individual, so that the amount, I think it would be more equitable if we did it that way, that we wouldn't give, this is just hypothetically speaking, we wouldn't give more than $10,000 to an individual, or more than $5,000 to an individual. So instead of having it a group cap, so to speak.
I'd do both.
Yeah, I like the idea of both too, but thank you, that's great.
there was just a question in the chat.
Okay, and then I see also Jean. Jean?
Yeah, good evening, this is Gene Reddick from Bud Hollow. Just got a quick question. Listening to this about the ARPA funds, what is the difference between the ARPA funds and the PPP loans that went out earlier during the pandemic by the Small Business Administration? What if people applied for that before? Can they now apply for this?
Yes, so we did not create a wall there. No, we did not create a wall, so yes.
And the federal government didn't either.
Yeah, neither did the, yes, right.
Okay, so you're allowed to apply for it, if you will, double dipping, apply for it twice.
As I understand, that's, yes, I don't think there's a stipulation
Well, yeah.
against that, yeah. And then we have a question in the, thank you, Gene, there's a question in the chat.
It says, Mary said so far number of individual, I'm not sure what she means by
Oh, I
this.
think the
How
number,
many individual applications?
applications,
I don't know off the top of my head.
I
don't
think
have
there
the-
were, excuse me, do you mean individual households or households and businesses? I believe that there were 6 individual household,
that's what I
5 or 6, but I think it was 6.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, could we, is it possible to entertain a motion at this point to have how about, is there a motion? Maybe I could propose a motion, how about that? I propose that the select board cap the amount of money for individual household grants for the entire ARPA program at $60,000. And secondly, I would propose that we cap the amount that we would give to any individual household at a certain amount to be determined. I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. Should I separate those out?
Yes, I would recommend
Okay.
it.
All right, first, I move that the select board cap, have an amount for individual households that will not exceed, a grant program that will not exceed $60,000.
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Peter?
So I would, the only concern, and this has been expressed, I believe, at a previous meeting, and it's also something that VLCT has noted to other towns, is in providing these resources to individuals or families, is that the town does not have the ability or capacity to follow up with those individuals or families as far as how these funds are used. So as Richard noted, yes, in taking the standardized deduction, our reporting requirements are much easier. That being said, there is still a very minute possibility that sometime in this process over the next 5 years, the town could be audited by the Treasury Department and required to provide proof of how these funds were spent in more detail than the initial. But it's your decision. I just wanted to bring that up as a point of thought.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comments? Brenda?
Well, following up on what Peter said, it seems like for the individual households, the select board will have to give them some guidelines, simple guidelines about keeping track so that we can convey their responses in good faith.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not talking about a huge amount of money.
No,
like a final report or something, or a receipt or something.
Yeah, and we can support them in doing that as needed.
Yeah, we'll do the best. It's really impressive that all of our towns are having to create these grant programs on our own. It's really impressive. So, without further discussion at this point, I see no more. I'll take a roll call vote for this motion to cap the overall amount at $60,000. Richard?
Aye.
Rusty? Whoops.
Aye.
Okay. Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Someone says aye. Thank you. All right, I think we get, let's table the other idea. Yeah, okay, good. And then we have one more thing to talk about, and that's that we will table this discussion as well, but we need to move with a plan for addressing the future investment gap, the future investment applications, and how we're going to address the entire community. Let's make sure that that's on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all for that very sturdy conversation. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask, what are our thoughts regarding adopting the final rule or not adopting the final rule? When would that happen?
do we have to adopt it?
Well, so that's what I was explaining previously.
That's what I thought we did by.
Yeah, so if you take no direct action, the Treasury Department makes the assumption that the town is proceeding with the standardized deduction or loss up to $10 million. You would actually have to make a specific action to actually state, no, instead of that, we're going to do the itemized deduction, which is, Richard noted, VLCT and many others are recommending against that. I would also recommend against that as well.
So
But
we've
we have
essentially.
noted it in the minutes that we have basically agreed to accept the standardized deduction.
Yes, that is correct, Richard.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we've tabled this discussion. All right, thank you. That's a very sturdy conversation, and there's more to come. This is grant writing and grant producing we're doing here. I'd like to turn this part of the meeting over now onto the further on the agenda. Thank you for your patience. Jeanette Tokars is here to talk to us for a moment about the Planning Commission and the town plan update. Jeanette.
Thank you. I will try to be just a moment. Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to both Zahn and Peter for their unfailingly gracious and patient hand-holding as I've gone through this process. Are much appreciated to both of you. Happy to report that I submitted the first step of having the town plan adopted was submitting it to the 3 abutting towns, to the Wyndham Regional Commission, as well as to the Department of Housing and Community Development. That submission took place on February 23rd. The 30-day clock starts ticking. We will have our first public hearing on March 29th. And then the next day, the 30th, the Planning Commission will meet to adopt any final edits. Once we've done that, the town plan then goes to the Select Board. The Select Board then holds its public hearing, which has to be 30 days after they receive the town plan from the Planning Commission. Yes?
Jeanette, did you say April 30th for the
No,
planning?
March 29th for the public hearing that's sponsored by the Planning Commission. The next day, March 30th, we meet, and then that's when the clock starts ticking for the Select Board to be able to hold their public hearing, so it has to be 30 days after March 30th. After that public hearing, so essentially the second public hearing, the second one sponsored by the Select Board, then the town can adopt the town plan. So it's a bit of a long process, but at least we're moving forward. Our committee decided not to make any substantive changes at this time. We have made and will make some minor edits. The most important one to let you know about is that we will be enhancing the language around the village center designations. And that's important because the Guilford Center village designation is up for renewal in May. So we need to have it would be ideal to have a town plan in place by May 1st. We likely will miss that deadline just because of the scheduling. However, there is a 90-day grace period. So even though we may not have a town plan officially adopted by then, we should still be able to apply for village center designation for Guilford Center. So we are making progress. Just a couple little short-term goals for the Planning Commission. Our committee felt it was important to really have robust dialogue and liaison to the other commissions. So one thing we're doing is thinking about every member kind of adopting another commission in the town.
Great.
So that one member would be responsible for reviewing the minutes, presenting at the next meeting any relevant information or topics that were discussed, and also inviting different committees members to join us for meetings periodically. So we really want to make sure we have a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas and communication. And to that end too, by statute, if the town has an energy coordinator, the energy coordinator can be an ex officio member of the Planning Commission. So that's something that we'll consider. Again, just with the notion of trying to really work across kind of different silos to make sure we're sharing good ideas and thoughts. Long-term goals, I think we're still wrestling with that. The town plan's a very aspirational document. We'll have to look at how we can move forward to see those aspirations be realized for the town. So I'll stop there. Any questions?
Anne has her hand up.
Jeanette, thank you. How would an individual access the draft plan?
So two ways. There'll be an actual paper copy at the town office, and then the other is I've asked Peter to put the plan on the town website for a downloadable link.
And the time of the meeting on the 29th?
It'll be at 6:30.
Thank you.
I put out, it's been warned, it's also available, went out on the front porch forum last night, but there'll be another invite coming out the day of. So we'll make sure that it's duly out there.
It will also be in the Brattleboro Reformer as well. And Anne, if you want, I can send you a link to the PDF copy if you'd like to see it.
Great. Don?
Do I understand that the plan is not on the website yet? Because I looked for it today and couldn't figure out where it was.
No, it was uploaded last week.
Okay, I think probably a link or some instructions. I know it's probably there and I couldn't find it, but if somebody else is looking for it, maybe they would like to know how to find it also.
Can you describe
It's
located?
Yep, so if you're on the town website, if you click on announcements on the homepage in the little blue bar, then it's going to bring up the most recent announcements first, and let's see where it is. It didn't get pinned. I'll make sure it gets pinned to the very top, so it's the first thing that individuals see when you go to the announcements page. So I can change that tomorrow.
Good.
And Peter, do you want to file it under the planning commission?
It is as well, yes.
Excuse me, Peter. If somebody just types in town plan in the search bar, will they get it?
Yep, they will get it there too.
If they say Guilford beside that.
No.
Well,
She's
no,
saying
no,
on
but I
the
mean,
search
it's
on the town. Oh,
website.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, the search feature on our website is excellent, so that will also bring it up. But I'll put it at the top of the announcements tomorrow.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will just quickly say that I am the liaison to the Planning Commission, and I have attended their initial meetings, and this particular group of people is very energetic and very focused on moving things forward in a very positive way. It's wonderful it's a pleasure to work with them. So thank you, Jeanette, and the committee, or the commission, I should say. Thank you very much for that report. All right. Thank you, folks. Let's go on to the warrants.
Oh, excuse me. Okay. Whew. Okay, I move we pay the following warrants. Payroll week 3, 6/22 for the sum of $6,710.29. Payroll week 3, 13/22 for the sum of $7,282.38. Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Expense warrant number 2217 for the sum of $48,613.26. Expense warrant FW17 for the sum of $58.50 for a grand total of $62,664.43.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any discussion?
Yes, by far the biggest expense here was the new siding for the town garage. In addition to that, there was insurance and salt and gravel and anything else, Peter, I forgot?
No, those are the primary ones.
Yeah, but the big ticket item was the siding for the town garage, and I encourage people to come and see it.
It looks great.
Yes, good. All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Richard?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Veranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Zon says aye. Thank you very much. On for other business is on the next, and I would just like, it's not actually business, but I'd just like to say out loud that you can expect that the select board over the next few meetings will spend a bit of time looking over some of the issues that will be ongoing for us, like our annual goals, like the schedule of meetings that we have with our commissions and committees and so forth, as well as looking at the rules of procedure to make sure that we understand fully what's going on and look at how we can engage with the community about those things. So expect that to be part of our meetings as we go forward. Peter, were there any communications?
Yeah, there's a communication from Ann Ryder. Ann, I don't know if you want to share it personally or if you would like me to read it.
I'll share it because, so you don't, because it's a little long. I just wanted to let the select board know that I'm resigning from the finance committee. Peter has a letter that I would like you to read at some point because I did make some suggestions. I've really enjoyed the work. I've enjoyed serving, especially with people I never served with before, like Tim and Gordon and Rusty and Sheila and Lynn Pancake. It was a really good group. My plate's a little full and I've been on it for 2 years and I felt it was time to step off that. The suggestions that I made, and they were not uniformly agreed to by the rest of the finance committee, but one was I believe that there should be terms created so that when you are on that committee, you're appointed for not necessarily term limits, but you're appointed for a 2 or 3 year term, whatever you choose, the select board. But then the select board has the option of reviewing and either not renewing or renewing someone's appointment. It just doesn't sort of float into a long appointment. The other thing is I think the charge of that finance committee, because it is a newly created committee, should be carefully reviewed, and I just think you should be aware of potential for mission creep, and be sure that that what that committee is appointed to do is clearly defined in support of the select board. Mainly, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve and to work with both the select board and the other members of the finance committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Let's see, Sheila's not here any longer, so, all right.
She said that she was going to say thank you, Ann.
She was, I know that Sheila was going to thank you, Ann, for your work, so I'll say that as much. Thank you very much for your work, Ann. And that's not just Sheila, okay? Take that from all of us, okay? All right. All right, are there any actions from a previous meeting?
Actually, before that, I have one further communication.
Oh, sorry.
So I have a very brief letter in response from the Guilford Rec Club, which is the private organization, in response to the letter that was sent to them relating to their request for ARPA funding. So it says, "Dear Richard and Select Board, thank you for your response to the Guilford Recreation Club's request for ARPA funding. We appreciate your enthusiasm for our work and hope to apply for the next round of ARPA funding that Guilford will distribute. In the meantime, we are looking for other ways to pay for our proposed improvements to the tennis court and the ball field, and we will be in touch if there is some way we think the town could further assist us. We hope that you will let us know when the next round of ARPA applications are due. Best, Carol Schnabel and the Guilford Rec Club."
Thank you.
And that is all I have for communications.
Thank you. Actions from a previous meeting.
So the actions from your previous meeting where you approved submission of the propane RFP, Aaron Kachuk was going to follow up with the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department to seek recommendations related to a fire warning system at the Historical Society. I was to follow up with the town's insurer about any specific insurance requirements, and actually one of the adjusters, as well as 2 members from the board of the Historical Society and I are all meeting at the library this Wednesday morning to review the current status of the building and if our insurance has any further requirements that were not previously shared with us. Richard and I were to work on resources to better share information about ARPA and the final rule with the public, and we were working on some of that information. And Richard, were you able to finish?
Zon has the latest.
So we'll talk about it and get it out.
Thank you, Richard. Veranda and Zahn were to follow up with the ARPA applicants and notify them of the current application process.
You did?
Veranda and Zahn to follow up on the idea of forming an ARPA advisory committee and report back at a future select board meeting.
He will.
Okay. Zahn to clarify his method of managing proposals and send that draft to Peter. Well, he clarified that tonight, and you did actually send me the draft at the end of last week. So, and last but not least is to do further work on the select board goals, which was discussed tonight, and Michael and Brandon have volunteered to do that. As far as actions from tonight, given their lengthy discussion, I haven't itemized them, but going through them briefly. You appointed Zahn as chair, Veranda as vice chair. You approved the road posting. You approved the annual financial plan. You certified the road and bridge standards. Let's see. You readopted the select board rules of procedure. You selected the Brattleboro Reformer as the newspaper of record. You made a very long list of annual appointments. Brenda and Michael volunteered to revise the select board annual goals for discussion and revision at a future select board meeting. You adopted a resolution in support of Ukraine. I am to follow up with the town's attorney regarding the conversation about the Algiers Fire District in the town and what steps would be required to merge the two entities. You made a motion that mask requirements in all town-owned buildings are now up to individual choice and are not a requirement. You scheduled a special select board meeting 1 week from tonight at the usual time. You approved a cap on the total amount of funding to be dispersed to individuals and families at $60,000 for all ARPA funding that Guilford is to receive. The future looking at ARPA applications will be discussed at the next select board meeting. I am to make the draft town plan more prominent on the announcements page. And that is all that I have written down. If I missed something, please share it with me. Otherwise, I'll review the video when I receive it from BCTV.
We approved the warrants.
To adjourn.
Oh, we approved the warrants,
All right.
right.
Yeah, that's a pro forma, so we don't normally list that.
Richard has made a motion to adjourn. And what, is there a, Rusty has a second? It looks as if Mary has a point of discussion. Mary?
Yes, sorry, I didn't know if you announce public, like at the end, do you normally do like a public, I don't know, time to speak? Or is it with each individual piece?
It is a recurrent, it's with each individual piece at this moment, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that. I thought it was always at the end.
No, so Mary, if you have issues that you'd like to talk about, please be in touch with me. And we can see about getting them on the agenda, or you can come prepared when you review the agenda ahead of time. We can make sure that you have time in the course of the meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank
Do
you.
I have time right now to ask anything?
I would say not.
I'll let my neighbors know. It was their question. I thought I'd ask.
Okay, thank you. Please
Thank you.
email me. All right. All right. Is there any further discussion about the motion at hand?
You mean adjourning?
Yes.
Oh.
All right. I'll take a roll call. Richard.
Aye.
Rusty.
Aye.
Veranda.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Zahn says aye. Thank you all very kindly. Long, hard meeting. I appreciate it very much. We'll see you next time. Good night.